For years, the Griffins have given us some of the wildest, most ridiculous, and occasionally heartfelt moments in animated TV history. But if there's one relationship that's truly pushed the limits of what any sane person could endure, it's Lois and Peter Griffin's marriage. Sure, they've had their sweet moments, but if we're being honest, Lois has had more than enough reasons to pack her bags and call it quits. So, let's take a trip through the chaotic, hilarious, and downright unbelievable times when Lois Griffin really should have divorced Peter Griffin once and for all. From the very beginning of Family Guy, Peter has been a walking disaster zone. Whether it's his impulsive decisions, selfish behavior, or sheer stupidity, the man somehow manages to cause maximum chaos with minimum effort. Remember the time he bought volcano insurance while living in Rhode Island? Or when he burned down their house trying to deep fry a turkey indoors? Each one of those moments cost Lois her sanity, and probably a few years off her life. Peter's antics are entertaining for us, but for Lois, they're grounds for divorce, or at least a restraining order. Then there's the infamous Mr. Griffin Goes to Washington episode, where Peter sells out his morals and his family's dignity just to climb the corporate ladder. Watching him abandon all integrity, leaving Lois to clean up the mess, shows a pattern that runs throughout the series. Lois is the glue that holds the Griffin family together, and Peter is constantly testing how far that glue can stretch before snapping. She's not just the voice of reason, she's the firefighter putting out the flames of Peter's endless disasters.
Hey, as a corporate bigwig.
I'm not so sure about this, Peter. I mean, that's Daddy's company. He spent his whole life building it from the ground up. And you don't know anything about running a big business.
Whoa, thanks for the vote of confidence. Geez, you're a bigger downer than a German bedtime story.
Now let's talk about Peter's many near affairs and outright acts of disrespect. He's flirted with other women, lied to Lois countless times, and even gambled away their house. The fact that Lois forgave him after he secretly joined the New England Patriots and moved out without telling her, that's next-level patience or pure denial. In the real world, anyone would have hit the eject button a long time ago. But Lois, the eternal optimist, keeps giving Peter another chance. Maybe it's love, maybe it's pity. But either way, it's hard not to think she deserves so much better. Of course, we can't forget Peter's parenting skills, or rather, his lack thereof. From neglecting Meg to fighting with Stewie, Peter has often acted like a fifth child instead of a father. One of the most memorable and questionable moments was when he staged an entire boxing match with Lois purely to prove he could beat her. It's moments like these that make you realize just how toxic their dynamic can be, and how Lois's forgiving nature has enabled Peter's worst traits over time.
Hey! What you doing down there, Lois? Aw, what's your matter? Mad at little old me? In your imagination, I've got long eyelashes.
She's stuck in a constant cycle of chaos. Peter messes up, Lois yells, Peter apologizes, and the next week it happens all over again. Even when Peter tries to be a better husband, his efforts usually backfire, like the time he became a feminist just to prove a point, only to make everything worse. Or when he tried to bond with Lois by joining her book club and ended up turning it into a drinking game.
Really admired the mother character's admission of personal torment after her daughter's death.
I disagree. I felt a total lack of ethical integrity in her readiness to abandon her children and start a life of her own.
Here's another thing. The book can also be a hat.
His heart might occasionally be in the right place, but his brain, well, let's just say it's never quite on the same wavelength. Lois, meanwhile, is perpetually cleaning up after his mess, emotionally and physically. Then there are those rare episodes that give us a glimpse into Lois's inner world, her desires, regrets, and suppressed frustrations. In episodes like Model Misbehavior, where Lois becomes a model and briefly escapes the chaos of her life, you can feel her craving for independence. She's constantly stuck between the life she wants and the one she has. Yet despite her ambitions, her maternal instincts always pull her back. Maybe that's what makes her so relatable. She's human. She knows Peter's a train wreck, but she's built her life around him and their family. Leaving might make sense logically, but emotionally, it's not so easy. Still, there are times when even her tolerance borders on self-destruction. The whole Pawtucket Patriot Ale debacle, the times Peter dragged the family into criminal schemes, or when he literally turned their house into a makeshift theme park. All of these moments pushed Lois to the edge. There's this underlying sadness masked by her sarcasm and strength. Lois has learned to laugh off things that would break most people. She's the definition of holding it together while falling apart inside. And then there's the way the show sometimes flips the script, showing Lois's darker or more chaotic side. Episodes where she steps out of line, cheats, or acts irrationally remind us that maybe she's not just a victim, she's trapped in a dysfunctional loop where both partners enable each other. In a way, that's what makes their marriage oddly compelling. It's not perfect, it's not healthy, but it's honest in a satirical, exaggerated kind of way. They're a mirror of real-world relationships that survive not because they're ideal, but because both people have grown too used to the madness to imagine life without it. Still, the argument stands. Lois deserves better. She's intelligent, attractive, and compassionate. She's had flings, she's had fame, and she's had freedom, yet she always ends up back in Quahog with Peter. Maybe that's the ultimate joke of Family Guy, that even when she should have walked away 100 times, she doesn't. She stays because despite it all, she loves the chaos, the imperfection, and yes, even Peter's stupidity. Maybe love isn't always rational. Sometimes it's just about finding someone who's as crazy as you are. And Peter, for all his flaws, completes Lois's strange, chaotic universe. But if we're looking at this through a lens of reality, Lois staying with Peter after everything is both impressive and tragic. It highlights a deep sense of loyalty, maybe even addiction to dysfunction. There's something magnetic about their dynamic. It's explosive, unpredictable, and weirdly endearing. Peter might ruin everything he touches, but he also brings a kind of wild joy to Lois's life that no one else could replicate. Perhaps the writers intended that paradox all along. That in the madness of Family Guy, the most absurd thing of all isn't a talking baby or a time machine, it's the endurance of Lois and Peter's marriage. There's something fascinating about the way Lois Griffin continues to hold her marriage together despite the absurdity that surrounds her. It's almost like watching a high-wire act. She's constantly teetering on the edge of emotional collapse, yet somehow she manages to keep her balance. But it lingers in every episode where she sighs, shakes her head, and forgives him one more time. Think about it. Lois was raised in privilege, born into the wealthy Pewter-Schmidt family, surrounded by everything money could buy, yet she fell for Peter, a working-class guy with a big heart and a small brain. It's the classic opposites attract story.
Hi, my name is Towel. I have a Peter for you. My name is Peter, and I'll be your nipples. Towel boy. Oh, jeez.
But over time, it becomes clear that her attraction wasn't just to Peter's personality. It was to break free from her family's expectations of living a more authentic life away from the cold luxury of her upbringing. Peter represented rebellion, but decades later, that rebellion turned into a prison. What started as freedom became chaos, and Lois has been trying to rationalize that choice ever since. There's a certain tragedy in how Lois's intelligence and emotional depth get buried under her role as the mom who fixes everything. When the house burns down, she finds a way to rebuild it. When Peter loses his job, she stretches their budget. When Stewie builds a death ray, she somehow pretends it's normal. Every disaster is absorbed into the fabric of her routine, and in doing so, Lois loses pieces of herself. She used to dream of being a singer, a model, someone who stood on her own. Those moments still surface now and then, but they're fleeting. She's trapped in a sitcom loop. Her growth always resets by the next episode. It's a clever bit of writing, sure, but it also mirrors real life. How many people do we know who stay in dysfunctional situations because they've forgotten who they were before it all began? And let's not overlook Peter's emotional manipulation, intentional or not. There's a pattern of him apologizing just enough to reset the cycle, but never enough to change. He uses humor as a shield, deflecting any serious confrontation with a joke or a distraction. Lois, being compassionate and forgiving, takes the bait every time. She convinces herself that he means well, that deep down he's a good man, and maybe he is, but intention doesn't erase damage. Over time, that cycle of chaos and forgiveness turns into something resembling dependency. Peter depends on Lois to clean up his messes, and Lois depends on Peter to give her purpose. It's a toxic symbiosis, and the writers have built an entire empire of comedy on that uneasy foundation. What's most remarkable, though, is how Family Guy uses this dysfunction to comment on the broader concept of American family life. Beneath the absurd gags and crude humor, there's a sharp critique of the happy family myth. Peter represents the average American man, immature, self-centered, but endearingly clueless, while Lois embodies the overworked, underappreciated partner holding it all together. Their marriage is both a parody and a reflection of countless real relationships. It's exaggerated, yes, but it hits close to home because it captures a truth we don't like to talk about. Love often endures not because it's healthy, but because it's familiar. There are moments when the show hints at Lois's breaking point, episodes where she questions everything, where she gets a taste of what life could be like without Peter. Sometimes she flirts with the idea of leaving him, other times she actually does, only to return by the end. Each of these moments carries emotional weight, but they also reveal how hard it is to untangle love from loyalty. Lois knows Peter isn't good for her sanity, but she also knows he loves her in his own chaotic way. That kind of love might not be romantic or ideal, but it's real in its raw imperfection. Maybe that's what keeps her there, not delusion, but acceptance. She's made peace with the madness, and in doing so, she's become unbreakable. Still, one can't help but wonder what would happen if Lois finally did walk away. How would Peter function without her? We've seen glimpses, those rare moments where she's gone, and Peter falls apart completely. He forgets how to cook, how to pay bills, even how to parent. It's comedic, sure, but it also underscores just how much he relies on her to survive. Lois, on the other hand, usually flourishes in her brief independence. She glows with confidence, finds new hobbies, new friends, even new romances, yet somehow, she always comes back. Maybe it's guilt, maybe it's nostalgia, or maybe she just can't bear to see Peter's helplessness. Either way, it's a powerful commentary on how emotional labor keeps so many relationships afloat, how one person's strength can become the very thing that keeps them trapped. Over the years, Lois has been tested in every way imaginable. From time travel disasters to alien invasions to the constant chaos of Stewie's schemes, she's faced it all with a mix of frustration and grace. She scolded God, fought off pirates, and even survived Peter's musical ambitions. She's the ultimate survivor, not because she's fearless, but because she keeps going even when everything around her is falling apart. That resilience is both her greatest strength and her biggest curse. After all these years, one thing remains clear. Lois Griffin should have divorced Peter a long time ago. But then again, if she had, we wouldn't have gotten half the chaos, the laughter, or the iconic moments that make Family Guy what it is today. So maybe she's not staying because she has to. Maybe she's staying because deep down, she knows the show and her life just wouldn't be the same without him. So next time you're watching Family Guy and Peter does something so unbelievably stupid that you wonder how Lois hasn't packed her bags yet, remember this, sometimes love isn't about escaping the madness, it's about learning to dance in it. Because as crazy as it sounds, Lois Griffin wouldn't be Lois without Peter Griffin driving her insane. If you've enjoyed diving into the chaos of Quahog and the dysfunctional brilliance of the Griffin family, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite shows and characters. Because let's be honest, there's always another wild story waiting just around the corner in the world of Family Guy.